So today we celebrate the baptism of Jesus. And this is one of those sacraments that I'm really passionate about, obviously as a priest, but it took me a while to kind of understand it. As a kid growing up, my conception of baptism was, it's like a nice welcoming ceremony. You know, we dunk the kid in the water, everybody thinks it's cute when he or she cries, we get a good picture, and then we go eat cake. It's a nice way to welcome babies into the church. And it is that. It is a sort of welcoming into the church. But it's actually a ton more. It's a huge, 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 huge deal. The fact that you and me are baptized is a massive deal. Why? Because it changed actually who you are. Your identity was changed the moment that you were baptized in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And that's what we hear in the gospel today. You are my beloved Son. Now this is Jesus being baptized. But as Christians, we are followers of Jesus. Literally, we follow him. Where he goes, we follow. And so when Jesus went into the waters and made the water holy, here we go. Each one of us into those waters. That's where we take the on-ramp into the life of God. We are now living as he lives. We are following in his footsteps, and it changes who you are. Over at the school, I was able to talk to the kids about the sacraments. And we were talking about there are 3 sacraments that actually leave a permanent mark on your soul. It's a fancy word, indelible mark. It's like it's tattooed onto your soul. So when you go to heaven, people will look at you and say, he received that sacrament. She received that sacrament. Baptism is one of them. Forever and ever and ever, you belong to God. There is a mark on your soul forever and ever. Your identity changes. You become a Christian. And that's not just a fun social club. But did you know the word Christian actually means little Christ? You know, you're a chip off the old block. You're a little Christ. You're another Jesus in the world. You are another God going forth. You're sharing his love. In baptism is the on-ramp that we must go through to get there. Now, when we talk about changing our identity at baptism, you're like, well, what was I before? Well, we're all God's creation. Every person that walks this earth, baptized or not, is God's creation, made in his image and likeness. Now, when you're baptized, what happens? You're no longer just his creation, you're now his child. It's the difference between being a member of the Commonwealth and being now a member of the royal family. Yes, it's awesome to be a member of the Commonwealth, I suppose. And to be a member of the royal family, I mean, think of it. And we would say, if you want to carry the analogy, all analogies limp, so bear with me here. But we are adopted as children of God. We're adopted into the family of God when we're baptized. And so think about, Camilla Parker Bowles, or I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, Kate Middleton. They're adopted into the royal family. Their identity changes. When they become part of the royal family, not only does it change who they are, but also how they act. If you read books about Queen Elizabeth, she would always say, remember who you are, to her family. You are part of the royal family. Remember who you are. Because who you are changes how you live. Same thing. When we're baptized, we're not just members of the Commonwealth anymore. You and I are like Kate Middleton, in a sense. Bear with me. We are part of the family. You are God's beloved child. And so when you're baptized, that seed is planted in you. And you're like, well, there are a ton of people in this world that are baptized. Why aren't there more people that are on fire? Here's what I would say. At baptism, the seed is planted. But that seed needs to be watered, it needs to be nurtured, and continually unpacked. And so we go through our life And we actually begin to realize, remember who you are? Who we are. And those moments are life-changing. I was just, back in listening to the announcements here, wonderfully read, by the way, wonderfully read, lectures around here somewhere. All of these beautiful opportunities, Guatemala, Extreme Faith Camp. Oh my gosh, you want to talk about a moment to unpack the fact that you are God's beloved child? That's not a throwaway line. That actually changes everything about how you live. Extreme Faith Camp for me, for Father Josh, for many youth, was life-changing. Before I went to that camp, I believed in God. God for me was kind of like a storybook character. You read about him and Winnie the Pooh and whatever before bed, and that's nice. When I went as a 6th grader to this camp, what they did, and the Eucharistic adoration was also in the announcements, they went from person to person in Eucharistic adoration. So the host from communion, they're bringing the host, Jesus, around to each kid, and I'm kneeling there as a 6th grader, and I remember the priest coming up with the monstrance, with the host, and blessing me, and I just started to weep. Why? Because I realized at that moment who I was. I was loved beyond even putting into words. I'm getting chills even just talking about it. I started to cry because I realized how loved I was. And that changed also the rest of my life. I wouldn't be a priest without that experience. That was given to me at baptism, that identity. It was unpacked in that moment. In everyday sense, more or less, we're trying, it continues to be unpacked. That's my shameless plug for Extreme Faith Camp. But you and I, we've been baptized. Have you had a moment where you've unpacked what this means in your life? Have you had a moment where you could say, okay, this is who I am, and this is how it affects my life? Here's what I mean. Baptism changes who you are, and it gives you the ability to what? If baptism is the moment when he says, you are my beloved child, my beloved child, I love you, I am well pleased. That's what your new identity is. And what does that mean for how you live? You can live loved. Man, I wish I could tattoo that phrase on the inside of my eyelids. Can you imagine how your life would look differently if you lived from moment to moment loved? I don't have to prove to anybody who I am, whether I'm good or not. I don't care what other people's opinions are. I'm free. Because I live loved. I live knowing who I am. Remember who you are. Here are a couple examples that perhaps maybe you've heard me share before, and then I'm going to leave it to you to think of those own examples in your life to reflect on. Number one, as a kid, we'd go on field trips at the Catholic school. And I was kind of a shy kid, believe it or not. And so I was kind of self-conscious a little bit, worried about people being mean to me. So when we'd go on these field trips, well, what happens? Mom or dad come as chaperones. I loved field trip day because every single kid no longer was living in fear. It was like, well, if I make a mistake or someone's going to try to be mean to me, dad's going to smash them like a grape, You're free. I knew I'm loved. Dad's here. It's okay. I actually can take the risk of going and loving. I know who I am, and it affects how I live. Life is like a field trip. Or secondly, I did a summer program. These are just examples from my own life, and the reason I'm telling you is so that hopefully it's turning the cogs in your head, where you have had these experiences of knowing yourself to be loved. I did this summer thing. It was like Vacation Bible School, but you do it all summer. And so I was going from parish to parish, and there was this one beautiful parish. There was this child, probably 2nd grade, and he had like a physical disability. So he was in a wheelchair. He couldn't really speak. And there was something so profound. His dad took the entire week off of work to come with his son every day to this camp. And I don't just mean, he's sitting in the corner on his phone playing Candy Crush. He was in the games. When his son needed his arms lifted up, he'd lift up his son's arms. And then the moment that just about killed me was when we would play like a game where you run across the gym. This dad would pick up his son, who can't talk, paralyzed from the shoulders down, and he would carry him across the gym. And he would be, dodging the kids, and this kid's face is just beaming. I could look at that and say, man, the poor kid. No, that kid knew he was loved. We have something to learn from that child. And that's the way it is with God and with us. The fact that you're baptized, the fact that I'm baptized changes things. Who you are has changed. You're no longer just his creation. You're still his creation, but you are his beloved child, who you are. And because of who you are, how you live can actually change gradually. You can live loved. And so, my brothers and sisters, please reflect in your own heart these moments in your life where God has touched you with his love. Reflect on these. Bring these back up into your mind. And there are many opportunities to continue to experience God's love. Adoration, Extreme Faith Camp, Guatemala, whatever it is, he loves you. You are loved. You are welcome here in this church, and we are here through the baptismal font on our way to heaven. Reflect in your heart. You are his beloved son. You are his beloved daughter. With you, he is well pleased.